What's going on, everybody? This is Jake. With 2024 coming to a close and my channel just hitting 20,000 subscribers, I wanted to do something a little bit special today. Over the years, some of you have asked me about my guitar collection and the recording setup I use. So I'll talk about that a little bit in this video. Now, I'm currently based in Alaska and I only have some of my guitar collection here. So what I want to do today is talk about guitars, effects, and microphones, and also amps that I've used for my videos in 2024. So we'll start with the pedals first. Alright, so I have some notes for every pedal here. This is a 1977 MXR Dyna Comp. This was made in Rochester, New York. This is one of the originals. It's got the Script logo on the back, which you probably can't see, but it's right there at the bottom. And this has a CA3080 integrated circuit, which is kind of makes it special. It's a little tin can that's on the inside on the circuit board. And this makes the pedal a little quieter and has a more noticeable dynamic range than the pedals later on. So I really like this pedal a lot. I've had a couple of these. I've had a 75, I've had one from I think 70, another 77, and I've had one or two from the 80s. And I also have a Boss CS3, and I have some other pedals, but this is a really, really good version. This one just gives it a little extra punch. I don't know what it is about this year with this 3080 in it, but it just sounds really good. So I've used this on various acoustic songs. I normally put it with my acoustic when I want to give my acoustic a little bit more power. Alright, so the next effects unit I have is called a Cloud Uplifter. This has been used on various acoustic guitars. What this thing does is it boosts the signal for a dynamic microphone. So an RE-20 or a Sennheiser MD-421, this thing plugged in will boost the signal. It almost makes it sound like a condenser microphone. And I've used it occasionally. I don't always use it, but when I use it, it's usually with an acoustic guitar. Alright, so the next effects unit is more of a tool than anything, but this is called an Ebow. This thing has two modes of operation. It has, on the back, you can see there's a switch. Flip it to the left, it'll give you a standard pitch mode, and it'll make the string vibrate, almost like a bow. It just has more of a bow sound to it. If you flip it to the right, it does have the same bow effect, but it's a higher pitched sound, almost maybe an octave. And so you can see when you turn it, when you flip it on, you get this little LED that comes on, and you put the bottom, there's kind of a groove on the bottom. Let me turn this off. And you put your string in between the two grooves, and it'll cause the string to vibrate. And so this thing's been nifty. I used this on Paralysis that I put out earlier this month. Alright, the next effects unit is a JHS. It's a JHS Series 3 chorus. Now, JHS put these out a few years ago. I think they put about 7 different effects out. And this one is a really cool one. This might be my favorite of all the ones they did put out. It has, it says chorus, but it has a switch right here. And in the up position, you get the chorus. Down position, you get a vibrato. And I really like the vibrato on this effect. And, you know, it just has 3 knobs. It doesn't have a stereo mode. It's very simple by design, but it gets the job done. You can always hook up the pedal to another, a different pedal with the stereo option to get that. So I really like it a lot. It's simple, it's effective, and it sounds good. Alright, the next pedal is a Boss CE2W, W for Wazacraft, meaning it was made in Japan of higher quality components. To me, it does sound better than a normal CE2. It also has the effect, there's a switch again, middle of the pedal. One option you have the CE2 mode, and then on the other option you have a CE1 mode. And the CE1 mode is what I like about this best. Years ago, about a few decades ago, I had a CE1, and it was great, but it was just big, it was noisy, it was old, so it was really fragile, and I couldn't really use it on stage. So when this thing came out, I sold the CE1 and bought this thing immediately. And it's just good. You know, it's new, it's rugged, it's high quality, it can stand up well on stage, and you have more versatility from this pedal than you would even a CE1 or a CE2. On top of that, you get stereo mode, so you can send this out to multiple amps. The last chorus pedal for this year is a Boss CH1. This is my favorite chorus pedal that Boss ever did put out, in my opinion. I have about 4 or 5 of these, and the version I recommend the most is the analog version, which was made from the late 80s to about 1995-ish. The analog version, which this is a I think this is from 93. The analog version has the MN3007 Bucket Brigade device chip. To me, it just sounds a little warmer and a little fatter than the later iterations of the CH1. And I used this most recently on Generator by Foo Fighters. I put that out a few months ago. All right, up next we have delay pedals. The first one is a Boss DD3 that was made in, this one was made in about 1988. And this one is a little special because it has the SDE 3000 chip, also known as the long chip, which was on the DD2s, and they stopped making these with the long chip around 1990. The long chip has, to me, it has a warmer, more analog sound. There's a little bit more breakup on the delay. You play a note, the delay has a little bit more of a clipping than a newer DD5 or DD4 would have, and I like that on this pedal. So, and I use this pedal most recently on Aurora. All right, up next is an Electro Harmonix Deluxe Memory Man. Yeah, Deluxe Memory Man. This thing is pretty old. It was made in the 90s. I got this maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, to get a certain sound. It's a certain type of delay pedal. It's a great sound, really. It has the Bucket Brigade device chip, the MN3005. Which was only offered, I believe, on the original run and the first reissues that came out in the mid to late 90s. It does not have true bypass, which means this knob here, level, the more you turn it up, the more the note will break up, the delay note. And I really like it for that. So it has a very distinct sound to it, similar to a Boss DM1, but it has the option of a chorus, and it has the stereo outputs, which I love. You can send it to multiple amps, and one output is a dry signal, which means no effect, and the other output is the effect. So great pedal. Isn't made anymore. Is getting more and more expensive, but I still recommend it for anybody who likes delay pedals. Okay, last but certainly not least is a Digitech Digidelay. This is my favorite delay pedal ever, probably. I've had, not this exact pedal, but I have a couple of these, and I've had this pedal for about 20 years, and I love it. I've played it on stage, I've played it in the studio, I've played it on my channel. I most recently used this on Paralysis. But this pedal is great. You know, it's not expensive by any means. I don't think it's that rare. And I think it's made in China. It's kind of a cheaper pedal, but it sounds really, really, really good. It can kind of give you the sounds of like an Echoplex, a Maestro Echoplex. You can get sounds of pretty much any type of delay pedal. And it's got 7 modes on it, this knob here. You can use the top mode as a looper, although it's a short duration, it gets the job done. And then you have these other modes, starting with the last mode is a short delay. You can get slap back, then you can move up. I think the capacity on the delay is 4 seconds, and it just sounds really good. And plus, you have the stereo output option on this as well. So I like it. I use it on my pedal board. All right, guys, on to the recording gear. So the first microphone is a ElectroVoice PL-20, produced in the 90s and I think even in the 80s. A few years ago, I was in the market to get a second RE-20 as a backup to my RE-20, and this thing had showed up on my feed. I did a little bit of research, and to my understanding, the PL-20 is identical to the RE-20. It was the professional line that was pushed out by ElectroVoice during the 1980s, and it's great. I mean, I bought it just because I knew it was older. Because I think they stopped making these in the 1990s, sometime in the late 1990s, and so I knew it was going to be a certain vintage, and it was made in Michigan, Buchanan, Michigan, and it was going to be great quality, and it is. And so it's got a very large frequency response range, which I'm a fan of, and it really gets the job done for vocals, acoustics, even electric guitars. So I'm very happy with it. So the other two microphones I use, at least for 2024, is the ElectroVoice RE-20. It's a much newer microphone than the PL-20 I have. I think it's from maybe the 2010s, but it's still really good. I like it a lot. You can see I have it on a 1x12 cabinet here. And behind that, I have an Audix i5, which is very similar to the Shure SM57, which I have as well. But I like the sound just a little bit more than the SM57 I have. All right, so the speaker is an ElectroVoice EVM-12L from the early 1980s. This thing is heavy duty. It pushes out about 200 watts. It's got a steel back on it. It weighs about 30 pounds. I like it because it really pushes out the sound, makes the amp it's just louder. It's a louder speaker, and one speaker can handle a 100-watt amp load very easily. So I really like the speaker a lot. Just use it by itself. Sometimes I'll put it in combination with a 1985-1960B 4x12 cabinet equipped with vintage 30 Celestions, just to get a different sound. But this is the speaker that I use for almost everything. Moving on up, I have a Soldano SLO-100 from 2012. This is my backup amp. I have not really used this on the channel, unfortunately, though I have used it for recording. This is pre-Mike Soldano selling out to the big boys. So this was made in his shop, hand-wired, and it's got a different knob configuration than the new versions out there. I highly recommend it. I think the tubes are Ruby tubes, power tubes, and it sounds really, really good. But my primary amp, I have not really had to use it much. And so this is my primary amp that I've used entirely this year and last year. This is a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier from about 1999. This is the Revision G, and I think the knob configuration is different than the new versions put out after 2000. I think this version has less knobs on the chassis than the new version. But the amp sounds great. It's got the stock tubes on it, which are Mesa Boogie STR 440s, and it just has a really warm sound, both clean and distorted. And to me, it just sounds really good, so I use it almost all the time. Okay, moving up, we have an Intellifex Limited made by Rocktron. This particular unit is from the early 1990s. Actually might be from 1995. And I've had it for a long time, and it's really good effects processor. It has multi-stage chorus, it's got delay, it's got reverb, it's got flange. It's a really, really good rack unit. It's very comparable to the Intelliverb made by Rocktron, and so it's just something I like to use on my guitar videos every once in a while. I think I used it on Paralysis, and I probably used it on a couple other videos. And above that, I have a Fuhrman PL-Plus. This is a power conditioner put out in the 90s. I think it was made in Petaluma, California. It's very rugged, very heavy duty, gets the job done. I recommend anybody who has multiple amps, multiple rack unit effects, get one of these. This is a great unit to have. It'll save your amps if there's ever a power surge. It'll save them. So it is very useful. All right, moving on to the next set of effects. I have another PL-Plus from the 90s at the top. And then I have a Line 6 HD Pod Pro that I bought about 12 years ago. This thing is really good. I use it just for different effects. Sometimes I'll plug the guitar directly in. Sometimes I'll put it in combination with an amp. It's great because you can plug an XLR microphone into it for acoustic stuff, and you can process it that way. Or you can plug an electric guitar straight in and use the effects. So I use it for a couple of the videos, I think, this year. Just below that, I have an M-Audio Firewire 1814. This thing is antiquated. I've had it for 15 years or so, and I am in need of a new interface. If you guys have recommendations on interfaces today, please let me know in the comment section. All right, guys. So, starting with the first guitar for today, all the way to the right, I have a Guild acoustic guitar. It's a Guild from 1996, and this is a JF65-12. Amazing guitar. This thing is all original, except it was damaged, unfortunately, last year, and it did have a little repair work. So, but it is pretty much all original. I'll talk about the damage here in a minute, but I got this guitar in 2023 in Florida, Jacksonville. I met with some folks that had acquired it from a widower of the original owner, sold it to them, or I think it might have been on consignment, and I met with those folks and picked the guitar up. Now, I'll say these guitars, particularly the Guilds, made in the 1990s, were made in Rhode Island, and they, in my opinion, are some of the best acoustics around of any era. The 12-string here, in particular, are some of the best 12 strings I've ever played, and I've played many different 12 strings. So I'll talk about the specs, but before I do that, I want to address this thing here in the sound hole. This is called a Bovita humidifier pack. Anybody who lives in a dry climate or a climate that has extreme temperature swings or travels a lot, I highly recommend buying some, either Bovita or I think Diodario makes the similar humidifier pack, but I highly recommend buying these and putting them in your acoustic instruments. This will keep the guitar from warping. It'll keep it from cracking. And I've learned over the years the hard way that these are very important. So saying that, moving on to the guitar, the instrument here, it's got a spruce top. It's got an ebony bridge. It's got pins with abalone inlays on top. The fretboard is also ebony, and the inlays are a combination of abalone inlay and mother of pearl. And then on the headstock, I think it is also a combination of abalone, don't know if you can see that, and pearl. So, beautiful instrument. I also did modify this a little bit since I bought it in 2023. I put an LR Bags, I think a Lyric is installed on the sound hole here. I did that aftermarket, although some of these do come with onboard DI input systems. So the back, and in this case, let me lay it down. The back has a beautiful figured maple arched back, and looks like to be a two-piece flamed maple. I think it's a hard rock eastern maple neck, and Grover tuners. The sides are also flamed maple, The flame doesn't really matter, it's just the material in my opinion, but it just adds a cool element to the guitar and the look. And it sounds amazing, like I said. This guitar has the original case. It's got some paperwork from 1996 inside, and it's a very cool instrument. So yeah, I love these. You can get these, I think, still for under $2,500, which is a bargain for an instrument as good as it is. And so, yeah, and so I've also used this guitar in 2023, but I played it on a couple of videos earlier this year. I think mostly some Big Star songs. This guitar is very special to me. This is a 1965 Gibson J-50. I bought this in 2009, and I have played it a lot since then. When I started my channel in 2012, I think this might have been the guitar I used on my first video, but I played it well before then. You know, for the years before then, I played it live. I've played it in studio settings, and it's always come through. And what makes this guitar special, I'll talk about that here in a minute, but there are a few things that are special about the year 1965 for Gibson, especially the acoustics. And I'll talk about that after I tell you the specs. So the top on this is a spruce top. I think it's Sitka spruce. The bridge is, in this case, for 65, it's Brazilian rosewood. The fretboard, you can see that, is also Brazilian rosewood. It's got mother and pearl inlays. It's just got a normal black headstock with the gold logo. And for the back, it's got mahogany. Now this is a one-piece back and mahogany sides as well as a mahogany neck. And it's got double-line Kluson tuners. So, couple of things about the guitar. In this case, it was damaged after I got it. I left it one day in my cold Buffalo loft. I left it sitting out, and I didn't really understand humidity too well at that point. And unfortunately, the back got a little bit of a seam split. And so it does appear on camera to be a two-piece back, but this is a one-piece back, which is something indicative of pre-1966 Gibsons. So that was a little unfortunate. I've also dropped this thing one or two times, which was very unfortunate, but luckily did not damage the guitar structurally. It's got a bit of a seam split right here, which was already there when I got it. This guitar has a lot of wear, and it already had that when I purchased it. I bought this thing, like I said, in 2009 in Berkeley, California, which is where I lived at the time. And I believe this guitar belonged to either a live performing musician or somebody who played, you know, at parties and stuff like that, because this thing had a lot of wear and tear on it. Based on the checking on the top, this guitar has seen some huge climate swings. So it was either left in somebody's car or it's just been played outside a lot. I think it's really cool. As far as mods go, I have done some things since purchasing. I've had the guitar refretted. Don't know if you can see, but I've had it refretted with jumbo style frets. And I've had a new saddle put in. I've replaced the bridge pins with brass just to brighten up the sound a little bit. I also use string gauge, a certain string gauge, which I don't really talk about often, and I will do a video on that later. For this guitar, I actually use I think it's a 40 gauge, which is an A string. No, it might be a little lighter than that. I think it might even be a 38, which is a very light string gauge for the low E. It's basically an A string. And I also use a slightly lighter gauge for the A string. And that helps cut down some of the boom on the acoustic. On this guitar, it works very wonderfully, I think. I've also had the nut replaced, and I have had an LR Baggs Lyric DI system installed in this guitar. It's a very special instrument, and the reason 65 is a special year for Gibson is because of the neck size, the neck width. I don't have the measurement here, although I may show it in a photograph. So the width of the neck in 65 in the beginning changed from 1 11/16 1 11/16 to 1 9/16 by the end of the year. Sometime during 65, maybe in the middle, they experimented with a 1 5/8 neck width, which this is, surprisingly, this is between 1 5/8 and 1 11/16. So this is not even a 1 5/8, it's just a little bit bigger. And to me, that is perfect for my hands. It's kind of maybe an anomaly for Gibson to have that size. 1 5/8 is also very uncommon, but something in between 5/8 and 11/16 is especially rare. And you, as far as I know, you can only find that with 65 Gibsons. And so that is the biggest reason this acoustic guitar is special, other than it just sounds amazing and plays very, very, very well. So that's it. All right, so the next guitar is a 2000 Paul Reed Smith Hollowbody 1. It's a McCarty Hollowbody 1. And it's a Hollowbody 1 because the back and sides are a certain material, which I'll talk about here in a second. This guitar is a special guitar, in my opinion. It's got the piezo system set up here. You can switch between two different modes, top being the piezo mode, and this is the volume control. And then you can switch it down, which is just the normal 2 pickup setup, or you can go in between, which is both, and you can kind of blend it. And you can send, the piezo has its own output from the normal output. So, the specs, it has a maple top on it. It's got PRS, arch top, I think it's hollow body arch top, treble and bass pickups. And it's got an Indian rosewood, I believe it's Indian rosewood fretboard with moon mother of pearl abalone inlays, which I don't believe Paul Reed Smith does anymore. It's got just a normal headstock on it. I think the truss rod cover was replaced by the prior owner. The back is a mahogany neck, and it's got tuners with rosewood tuner buttons on it. And the prior owner, unfortunately, they installed a strap button right here, so that's another mod. And it's got a mahogany back, which is why it is referred to as the Hollowbody 1, as opposed to the Hollowbody 2, which has a maple back. And then it's also got mahogany sides. And so I got this guitar a few years ago online, and I didn't really know what to expect. I knew they were going to be great guitars. I really lucked out because when I got it, it's a very lightweight guitar. I think it's maybe 6 pounds. It feels very balanced. It's very resonant acoustically, and it sounds pretty good through just about any amp. And so I've used this guitar only recently on my channel, I think starting with Scott Weiland Paralysis. All right, so the next guitar is another special one. This is a 2023 Paul Reed Smith private stock single cut. This guitar was custom ordered. I custom ordered this guitar in 2022, and like I said, I think it arrived in 2023, early 23. So the top is a maple, curly maple top, and the finish is gorgeous. It's called Indian Sunset. The pickups on this, so the bass pickup is a 5708, which I think is Alnico, and the treble pickup is called an M. It's like \M/, which is a really good pickup. It's nice and clear. It's still got some of the warmth that you get from the 5708, but it's a little more clear than the 5708. And it's a blend of ceramic and Alnico. Sounds great. The fretboard is Brazilian rosewood, and the inlays are stained, yellow to match the center of the top color, and it's stained maple, and I think it's curly maple at that. And the outlines of the birds are mother of pearl. The veneer for the headstock is also Brazilian rosewood, as well as the truss rod cover and tuner buttons. And the eagle on the top is also maple, stained maple. The guitar has some custom features. Other than being a custom guitar, I had push-pull pots installed from the factory that allow for single coil splitting on the pickups. So another custom feature is that the switch tip is matching Brazilian rosewood. Now the back is perhaps my favorite part of the guitar. The entire back and neck, for that matter, is African limba, also known as carina, and so are the back plates. And so that's just a really cool feature. The guitar is, although it's a Les Paul shape, it's still pretty comfortable. It's about maybe an 8.5 pound guitar, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it was signed by Paul Reed Smith himself. So, yeah, great guitar. I have used this only on one video from this year. I think it was Generator by Foo Fighters. I also want to say about this guitar, and I will expand on this in a later video, but Paul Reed Smith is making some of the best guitars they've ever made, and some of the best modern guitars that are made today are made by Paul Reed Smith, in my opinion. I have said recently that this is the best Les Paul, one of the best Les Pauls I've ever owned, even though it's not a Les Paul. It has the same options that one would get from a Les Paul, but it still has, because of the single coil splitting, you get that option of the Strat, and it's just a very high quality guitar. I think what PRS is doing is better than anything they've ever done in the past, to include the very early days. And I have Paul Reed Smiths from 1986 and 89. All throughout their span, I have guitars, or have had guitars from them, and this is one of the best ones I've ever had.